Hello and welcome to Eva's House of Spirit. I'm Eva, and today I want to talk a little bit about duality and divinity and the elements and like just some basic kind of spiritual philosophy. Philosophy is a thing where there are no real right answers. It's philosophy is in the realm of introspection and following trains of thought in seeking truth, but it's not like a dogma. I'm not here today to tell you that anything that I present to you is solid truth or the right way or the wrong way. So earlier I was thinking about duality, the polarities. One of the easiest ways to consider polarity is to look at the yin-yang. And I drew it like this because when I first learned, my craft, my spirituality, I began with Wicca, and the way that I learned to set up my altars. And it's, again, I'm not telling you this is the right way, but the way that I learned it, you would always set your dark polarity, your yin, would always be at the left, and you would work to your light polarity at the right. Now, this yin-yang here, this is a diagram of the polarity that exists in everything. And it exists within the circle, the symbolic of all things. Okay, that much makes a lot of sense. We have everything, and then we have the polarity of yin in everything, and we have the polarity of yang in everything. So I thought to myself, how do the elements fall into this? And then I went like this. I wrote in my notebook, I wrote north, south, west, east. And that again made sense because north falls in the realm of yin, west falls in the realm of yin, south falls in the realm of yang, east falls in the realm of yang. Okay? North and west are feminine elements. East and south are masculine elements. Many of us know this. So then I asked myself, what is this and this then in relation to the polarities and the elements? Now, the way that I see it, it makes a lot of sense to us that there are earth goddesses and water goddesses, or Western associative goddesses and Northern associative goddesses, goddesses of things like water, the moon, earth, and usually we see gods falling in the realm of, fire, or air, sky. It's usually how we tend to see a lot of the archetypes. But then it occurred to me what these are the exceptions to the rule. In some cultures, you will find water gods. You will find, earth gods. Sometimes also you will find air or sky goddesses, and you will find sometimes fire goddesses. So that totally made sense to me. That clicked. But then I started asking myself, well, how do the Chinese elements fall into this? And then, I referred to some literature that I have, and I looked up the, directions, how they set up their elements. And how they set up their elements is they do agree with us, the Chinese do agree with us, that fire falls in the south. They agree with us there. However, they assign metal. They assign metal to the west. To the north, they put water. And to the east, they put wood. And where they put earth is in the center. What we Western practitioners tend to generally do, what we put in the middle generally is spirit. So let me just take my chalk there and let me just write spirit in here. I hope you can see all this clearly on your computer screens. I mean, I'm trying to use different colors of chalk. Okay, so fire, that makes total sense in the South. Now, in West, having metal in the West, I started thinking, when we look at Western associations, we do equate silver, the metal silver, with water and with the moon. But we can also equate metals, you know, with the earth, with north, because they're mined out of the earth. But then you have to also consider, maybe it's relevant that metals, when they're worked, they become molten, so they have an almost water quality, and they are shapeable, you know. So like you can work them. So maybe metals, you know, maybe that does make more sense being in the West as well. Not saying that water can't be, you know, Western associative too. I'm just saying there's a connection there. It clicks. It makes sense. So that's not totally out of whack. Now, water being in the north, how does water in the north make sense? Now, granted, too, one thing you want to think about is that water still falls in the realm of yin, because the yin-yang in my illustration, north still falls in the realm of yin. You know, that little tail still catches where the north falls. So that makes sense. But anyway, water in the north, well, what's to the north? Ice and snow. What are ice and snow made out of? Frozen water. It's water in another state, but it's still water. So that kind of makes sense now. That makes better sense now that I think about it. Also, I was thinking about wood in the East. Now, I know that some practitioners will assign wands, you know, the suit of wands in the tarot, or the spiritual tool of the wands. Some will associate wands with fire because wood burns, you know. But then there are some practitioners that will associate wood with air, with east, with mind. And I can't speak for everyone, but myself, I associate wands with air. I always have. And there's a few reasons why. I guess because when I think of the East, I think of trees that grow up to the sky, you know, wood growing up to the sky, seeking that higher, that symbolic enlightenment of the mind element. And also, I think of pencils that we write our inspired ideas down with. And the wand, it directs our intention. And intentions, I believe, though they can come from feelings, they can also come from thoughts, you know. But I feel that in a sense, before you can feel a certain way about something, you have to make up your mind about what you think about it first. You know what I'm saying? Like, allow me to explain. If someone says something to you and it offends you, I don't think you feel offended first. You feel offended for a reason, because you think a certain way about what they said. You know, you have thoughts, ideas about what they said, and that's, or what they did, and that's why you would get offended. You know what I'm saying? So thought precedes feeling. You know what I mean? Your mind does lead the way, in a sense. You have to have your thoughts before your feelings will go either way, if that makes sense. So wood in the east, that makes sense to me. Earth being in the middle with spirit, that makes sense to me too. Because at the core of most spiritual systems, at least in the respect of alternative faiths, and I say alternative as in not organized or largely institutionalized, or you know what I mean, like our world is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Our world is kind of driven by the major world religions. So when I say alternative faith, I'm talking about the faiths that are not those major world religions, like Christianity, Islam, any of the major ones, the Jewish faith. Like, those are the major organized religions. I feel that the sort of paths and spiritualities that everybody else follows, the ones that tend to fall more in the pagan, direction, those are, to me, I like to use the term alternative faiths, because that kind of covers everybody. It's like a blanket term. But anyway, most people that follow alternative faiths, most of them find their spirituality very closely linked with the earth. And the earth is, in a sense, at the center of the great all. Your whole world, what's at the center? Your spirituality, in a sense, falls at the center. Your spirituality linked with earth, physicality as well. Physicality and spirit, they are very closely tied. They do kind of meet in the middle. So that makes sense. That makes sense to me. I mean, I'm sharing this with you just because I want to illustrate to you what where my mind went as I kind of meditated on this. Another thing that I thought about was, I was thinking about the all, and I was thinking about duality, and I was thinking about how everything is connected. I was thinking about how all spirits are connected, because I thought, well, I think they're connected to some degree or other. I kind of tend to see divinity as a great higher consciousness, one great unified higher power that is faceless, formless. It is like everything and nothing. It's like there's a greater one, and yet that greater one is divided in polarity. That greater one is divided into the yin-yang, so that when many of us, when we tend to, a lot of us pray to it, we tend to pray to its goddess and God aspects, and also these little pieces here, the anima and the animus, like the male and the female within the male. You do have goddesses that have masculine sort of traits, like yang traits. Like, you will have Artemis, for example, or Athena, these very powerful, goddesses that have yang qualities, active and like aggressive and just like empowered, and not traditionally passive as yin tends to be. Passive, I mean, as in not saying, it's hard using words. passive not in the sense of being a doormat. Passive as in the opposite of active. And that's also, dark and light. Darkness tends to have a passive, it is passive, and light is active in nature in terms of what it tends to do, So yes, and you'll get gods sometimes that are more passive, more almost yin, like they have yin qualities to them, So you have the great all, that higher consciousness that is neuter. It is everything. It is everything and nothing. And then and while it is neuter in a sense, while it is like both genders and yet no gender, within it, it has two polarities. It has the female and it has the male. And that's why a lot of Wiccans and a lot of, just in general, a lot of practitioners that will have deities will usually be drawn to having a pair. Some of them also kind of see the duality within the, within the whole. So they acknowledge that the goddess and the god, they are separate and yet they are connected. They are almost as one, but they are like two halves of the same coin, two sides of the same coin. You know what I'm saying? So that's why a lot of practitioners will have a goddess and a god. Now, that's not to say that you can't have just a goddess or just a god. I'm not telling you that this is the way. I'm just explaining, like, there are some people that are very, what's the words I'm looking for? There are some people that duality, it just resonates with them very strongly. So they do have a goddess and a god, a yin and a yang, that they will work with. What if a great analogy for divinity would be this? It's one paper, but many dolls. This is to say that each doll, each metaphorical doll, is its own unique self, and yet it is connected with all the others, and yet it is part of a greater whole. This is to say that each god, each goddess, they are unique, they are individual, they are in themselves who they are, but they are all facets of a greater whole. Now, speaking in terms of polarities, this then means that goddesses and gods are all equally connected. This also then means, theoretically, that evil things are connected with light things. The positive and the negative being connected to one another. That raises some questions. And I don't know that I'm prepared to articulate those just yet. I think I need to make another video later after I meditate some more on this topic. If you want to put your thoughts and feelings about this in the comment box, please feel free to do so, because this whole video, this is just me meditating on stuff. This is just me like kind of following my train of thought. But back to the divine paper dolls. Now granted, I don't know how closely related or, all the facets of why positive and negative might be connected, but the male and female, the duality makes sense that they would all be connected, and the deities being separate yet part of a greater whole makes sense to me as well. And I look at it like this, how I said one paper but many dolls. It's like looking at a diamond with many facets. One diamond, one stone, many faces. It's kind of like when you think of yourself, all the roles that you fulfill in your life. I'm Eva the daughter, I'm Eva the wife, I'm Eva the witch, I'm Eva the tarot reader, I'm Eva the worker. There's so many. I could just sit here and go on and on and on. And we all have these. We all have different roles that we fulfill in our life. And in a sense, deity, I think, is like that as well. Every separate deity is a facet, almost like a role, an aspect of the greater whole. Let's look back at the Chinese elements again, because there was something that, as I was following my meditative train of thought, something that kind of occurred to me, and I don't know, I'm just going to show you what I was thinking, and I want to know if you think it makes sense. So, again, we have fire in the south, we have metal in the west, we have water in the north, we have wood in the east, okay? So just, yeah, we got fire, metal. I'm going to write them out, well, because if I don't write them out, this could get confusing in looking at my diagram, I think. Wood, water. Okay, so that's how, oh, and earth. I'm just going to put a big E in the middle so I don't overlap my writing. Okay, so I was thinking to myself, about these elements, and I was thinking, okay, and I know there's ways that they kind of connect them in their own philosophy and their own beliefs, but I was thinking, okay, now we got east. East is the realm of mind. East is where inspiration is born. Inspiration leads the smith to the forge, to the south, to the place of fire. There at the forge, he takes up the metal. Metal in the Chinese elemental system falling into the west. He forges the metal into its molten state and creates it back into something of physical form. He transforms the metal. Now, I've thought about that. And I was looking at this figure, and it's going clockwise, so it does go in a creative sweep, in a creative motion, clockwise, which tends to go with when you are creating or bringing something in or manifesting something, as opposed to counterclockwise would be banishing or destroying something. So I was looking at this and I'm going, what does this look like? What does this look like? And then it occurred to me that what that looks like is it kind of looks like this, like an inward, clockwise, loose spiral. So then I thought, inspiration leads the smith to the forge takes the metal, he works the metal into physical form. Alchemy. So then, in a sense, what would the spiral be in relation to alchemy? It would be a symbol for, it would be symbolically a way to illustrate the spiritual introspection, the sort of inward journey of a person on their spiritual path, on which, how alchemy, they say that they claim that this, how can I put it? The symbolic claim is that it is the pursuit of turning base metals into gold. Well, that's totally symbolic, some people say. Now, there's different takes on alchemy, and alchemy is a deep subject. But let's just say that those that say that the symbol of turning base metal into gold is symbolic of taking a person at their most base state, and you are elevating that person to higher consciousness, to enlightenment, to gold, you know? And so, if we take inspiration leads the smith to the forge, he takes the metal, he works the metal into a physical form, you know, that inner motion. We're then creating that spiral, which is the symbol of that spiritual journey inward, that elevates the self from base to enlightened. Feel free to meditate on the things that I have shown you. Feel free to add or argue or discuss. Tell me if it made sense. Tell me if it didn't make sense. Till our next exchange, blessed be in Ashe.